Welcome back to Come Get Some show. It's a come get some kind of week. It was a come get some kind of day yesterday with Browns fans in Indianapolis. You could hear it on TV. That was a cool thing to see. It's only about 4.5 hours or so from here. But I know a lot of people who were in attendance, and they said there's probably about 30% or a third of the fans in attendance yesterday were Browns fans at the game. You could definitely hear them on the TV, jumping off. But I definitely did not have 39-38 on my bingo card for the final score of that game. I would have definitely lost on that bet. Talk a little bit about that, especially the 38, right? From that side of standpoint, what you saw from the game yesterday in the defense, Gito.
I will tell you this, is that surprised me too. And, you growing up with me and also being in the games, it would have been a hell of a plane ride home, because I'd have been slapping and yelling and dog cussing a lot of different people about giving up 38 points, to those guys and everything. But it also shows a tribute to, some of the personnel things that's going on over at the Colts. I think that they've got some better personnel than other people have talked about. The ability for Minshew to be able to play better than he has played in some other times. But that front that they've got on the offensive line, I've always respected their offensive line for the last decade that they've had over there, and some really good players. But I never would have thought.
Speaking of that,
39-38.
No doubt. Speaking of that front, up front for the Colts, and then the front for the Browns that have been playing so dominant this year. What did you see in the run game yesterday? I mean, we played the juggernaut of the 49ers, right, the week before in the run game, and just completely shut them down. What did you see from yesterday from the run defense, and why they were able to why the Colts were able to move the ball on them in the run game?
Well, you're setting me up just like you always have your whole life, because you know what I'm going to say, or you have a thought what I want to say. Here's some things about playing on get off and still playing the run. I think Jim Schwartz does a fantastic job, like we did many, many, many years ago. He's done a great job on coaching get off the line of scrimmage, okay? Get off is not just about pass rush. Get off is also about playing the run, okay? It's gap fixtures, it's gap fixation in playing the run. I thought there were several times on the interior part of the defensive line to where I saw those guys getting off playing the pass when it was runs. Okay, and the run pass tip or the alert wasn't being read, smelled, sniffed out enough. And understand, that doesn't mean you're going to catch and read. It doesn't mean you're going to stay on the line of scrimmage. It means now I've got to get off the ball with my attacking run stance, technique, and everything, and encounter if that's wrong.
Right.
Those guys took advantage of several of those things, cutback runs back up the middle, because you could see the stunts almost like it was a pass rush game going on when it was really a run play, and the game should have been off.
I agree with you. I mean, and I think some of those stunts, they got knocked off the ball for the first time. I think a couple times. A lot of those just traditional runs were just inside zone, not even duo, but or inside zone type runs. But the defensive tackles got knocked off the ball for the first time yesterday, and so I did see Jim trying to stunt and slant, the front, and try to account for that at times. But then there was issues on the edge, right, with the zone read players. We see in the boots and being able to contain that stuff, especially in the low red zone. I mean, Gardner Minshew had two rushing touchdowns on that. It was like every time they got down there in the red zone, maybe taking a page out of the Ravens playbook from 2 weeks before, and the quarterback run game and getting Minshew out was what they went to down there, and they didn't have an answer for it.
So that highly defined player you're talking about, when everybody used to shake their head when I came up with the term, decades ago, of QCBR, player, quarterback, cutback, boot reverse player, that technique was not played very well at all.
No doubt. And for the fans, what he's talking about, and a lot of you guys that are coaches and follow the show as well too out there, but it's that edge player on the defense that when he's free, and we see this so much in college game as well too, is that free or red player does he have the quarterback the quarterback, the cutback, the boot reverse, or is he a chase player, crashing, chasing the ball? And if he's going to be a chase the ball player, like what was happening yesterday, the way that they were playing and the way the wide 9 plays a lot, then there's got to be somebody off the ball, behind the ball, that is scraping and replacing.
And replacing him.
We saw the first touchdown run. I mean, Delpit was probably that guy there, and he just got too wide or got kind of shook, and Minshew went vertical. So that was maybe a part of it. Maybe that guy is not used to being in that position as much, right? Like a linebacker is. But there was definitely some of those things. But besides that, I mean, because that's not going to put 38 points on the board, week in, week out. I think one of the big things that was different was for the first time this year, the explosives given up, right? I mean, the Browns defense had been so dominant, and in part because they were the number one, team in the league on not giving up explosives, and then they gave up multiple explosives yesterday, catch and runs, like on the Pittman slant. Both times that Miles was in the neutral zone, they took the free play shot, and
throw a shot,
and they hit both of them.
They got them both.
And so they had a lot of explosive and point-producing explosives yesterday.
And just like you said, going back to the days, the best player I've ever coached against on get the call, throw the ball was Aaron Rodgers. Okay, and he's done a phenomenal job with that, and people have copied that off the years, and they did capitalize on both of those offside plays. But I will tell you this, and I know Jim's going to be a little bit upset with some of the space tackling that went on the explosive plays. We've been tackling much better than that, and tackling, especially in space, but tackling starts with attitude first, technique second. And that means on how you're going to go about arriving and then finishing up the tackle. And there was a couple of, space-type plays that we didn't close the time and distance to the reaction of now use the technique of the tackle. We didn't do that well enough. And that was somewhat surprising, and that gave them some points that shouldn't have been on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and we've been such a good tackling defense this year, right? And so that was, I would say, alarming, but they'll get it fixed, right? I mean, usually when you see those things, you see those things crop up, early in the season, and it's like repetitive, versus kind of being a 1 week type of thing,
But the big counter was taking the ball away and then scoring on defense. And they were able to come back with some of those big plays right there by going ahead and score with the offense still over on the sideline. And I thought they were very productive on making some big plays there on the defensive side to counter some of they had given up.
And like you said, and taking the ball away, and that's two of our old guys, and Miles, and then Denzel having that heck of a fold-back interception. They're late, but and the blocked field goals and the sack force fumbles for touchdowns with Miles, who obviously had a man-child sort of game. But you want to talk on either of those two guys?
I will tell you this: is that Miles made me smile so much because I love the example he's setting with his physical ability, but then that also the example of leadership. People will listen to you more when you show the right example with effort and toughness and playmaking ability. And he made some big-time playmaking plays on that, and so did Denzel. People don't realize on that interception that he was getting ready to force the run, hit the brakes, came back up underneath that route and picked the route because Gardner got his eyes off of him. He thought he'd faked him into coming up on the line of scrimmage to play the run. And Denzel said, check this, baby. And all of a sudden he came back under the route and stole the ball. I was proud of both those guys.
No doubt. Do you think Bradley Chubb could have made that play?
Don't get me started on that. Now you're going to have another story, all right? Another story. We talked about Miles' pick. Yeah, the second year, we're getting ready to decide on whether it's going to be Denzel Ward or is it going to be Bradley Chubb. So they called me into the room there to get my opinion, and the first thing I said was, because they were trying to shove Bradley Chubb down my throat, and I said, look, fellas, I understand that's who you want to take, but I just don't think he can play press coverage very well. I don't think he can intercept the passes very well, and I think he'd have a tough time covering me. They looked at me like, what do you mean? He's a defensive lineman. I know. We need a defensive back. We don't need that, okay? Get the defensive back. And we took him. So there it is again, and two pretty good players that evidently someone semi-listened listened about.
No doubt, and that's the case in point that you see right there. And that's for viewers out there. That was the point at the time. Was as good of a player as Bradley Chubb was. You got Myles Garrett, you got Emmanuel Ogbah, you got Larry Ogunjobi. Is hey, if we can't cover long enough for them to be able to get there, if we can't shut down and cover some of the players that Antonio Brown was even still the previous year was still in the division and some of those players then that we're playing against in the AFC, then we don't have a shot. Those great pass rushers aren't ever gonna get a chance to get there. And you mentioned Myles yesterday, and I was really proud, and I know we were watching the game together, and really proud and really excited to watch this. Right, and it's such a little nuance, but when he jumped off sides early, and it's all of a sudden bombs over Baghdad, right, and maybe a younger player in Myles this past, and just in general in the league, you can maybe go inside yourself, get in quicksand a little bit. Maybe your ego gets involved, or maybe it's just not a poor old me, but it's that whole thing like, oh, I messed up, and shrink, right, and just kind of let the game go through the motions. And so I was just studying, watching his body language, watching everything from that moment, and say, how is he going to respond? And he responded unlike I've ever seen him respond, and maybe a lot of players, right, in those situations respond, where he immediately, like when he came out the very next play of the very next drive, they actually ran the ball, and he violently set the edge, tore off, folded inside, and like got in on the tackle for about a 3 or 4 yard gain, but like smoked the guy, folded back in like where the linebackers should be. I was like, okay. And did it again the next play, and then all of a sudden burns it off the edge, gets a sack. Then you see him go over the top and block the field goal, and he was feeling it. But to watch how he responded to that early adversity and instead said, you know what, no, I'm going to go take over this game. I'm going to go will this game. That was just one play early in the game. Hey, watch these other 10 that I go and make being the difference. That was huge to see, because he's got that ability. He's got that mental capability as well, too. It was awesome to see him put that all together under that adversity situation.
When we started talking about that, you made my heart sing. I thought that was a fantastic analogy of being able to see that going on. He's come a long ways. It made us both proud sitting there. And again, it also makes me smile when you talk about poor little old me, because I used to get on him about poor little old me and pouty, and all that kind of stuff. So evidently he's learned to block me out and block a lot of different people out, and that is important, that you have to be in a mindset along with a physical set to play this game at the highest level in the world. Okay, there is no second level. You're at the highest level in the world playing this sport, and it's more than just your physical nature. You got to have a strong mind too, and he did a fantastic job with that. I was proud of him too.
No doubt. And we're going to talk some more Myles, and we're going to talk some more other big stories around the league, and we're going to talk some old Shanle stories, some old Saints stories as well, too, when we come back. Welcome back to Come Get Some. This is the Come Get Some show with Mr. Come Get Some, and our inaugural guest, one of my all-time favorite players that I got a chance to coach, and we got a chance to coach, and it was definitely in some of those mini Come Get Some moments, some of the suck it moments when the league's telling us to stop doing that stuff. Scott Shanle, thank you, Scott, for joining us today, brother.
Absolutely, man. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. I saw the podcast last week, and I thought, holy crap. Look at this. Gregg Williams is on the podcast. I never thought I'd see the day, but I'll tell you what, Blake, and I reached out to you after I watched it. Like, watching you guys talk brought back so many memories of those 3 years we were able to spend together. We won more games in the NFL than any other team from that span. 2009, 2011, won a world championship. So just watching you guys talk, man, it brought back so many great memories. And hell, we worked hard, but we had a lot of fun doing it, and I think that's what was the most memorable part about it.
We had a lot of fun doing it. We did, and the thing about it is that how can you believe that someone would name a podcast show that I'm going to be in on Come Get Some? Come get some. And then you guys, when I read the letter in the meeting from Roger Goodell that they didn't know what it was, when you guys had that signal that I started doing on the sideline too, that they were going to find me. He didn't know what it was about, but they're going to find me and they're going to double it till I stopped. And then you guys thought it was funny and would come by and taunt me and try to get me to do it so I would get fined, and I did not bite. So come get some. Here we go.
Perfect name. Perfect name. It was absolutely beautiful. I love the name. You captured everything. Like, I think we stood for in our meeting room and the way we played in that name. So I hats off to you guys naming it.
We had a lot of fun. We did, and brought back memories. Great back memories seeing you today too. And the other thing is that as people want to talk about me getting older, that may be a little bit, but I got a hell of a lot more hair than you. And so
I've looked like this since 18. Hey, I just kept shaving it so nobody could ever tell how old I was getting.
And guys, Scott was our starting will linebacker down there. I was coaching linebackers with Joe Vitt, and G-Dub was the defensive coordinator. Actually, the year we won the Super Bowl, I was over coaching offensive line, right? So coaching scout team going against these guys, but got a chance to move back over there and coach Scott for 2 years in 2010 and 11. Scott was a Nebraska Cornhusker. I know we're kind of in Big Ten country, here. Up here in Ohio with Ohio State and Michigan. But speaking of come get some moments, what were some of your favorite come get some moments, from your time with us? What about I know this because I was over coaching on the offense at the time. What about the very first play of OTAs, the first season? Do you remember that? Covering nobody and all 11 of you guys lining up?
I do remember it. But I didn't remember it because the first thing I thought of is the up downs we did. So I was probably still a little fuzzy. That's probably why I didn't remember it, Blake. I was too tired from the damn up downs.
Yeah, 40 up downs.
Tell the viewers about up downs. What was that like?
So for you to earn the right to be a part of our defense, come get some group. No matter where you were, you're standing on the team, where you're a Pro Bowler, you were going to be a future Hall of Famer, whatever. You did your 40 up downs. That was your initiation into becoming a Saints defensive player. So it's one thing, like we were all there, we understood it, we all did it together. What was funny is when you'd sign somebody, be a guy off the street who just tried out, he's excited he made the Saints, calling everybody he's on the team, and then you had to do the 40 up downs and probably considered retirement. But those were awesome. When you got to stand around and watch the other guy do 40 up downs, that was a little more fun.
And we all stood around him in a circle right after stretch, and we all counted him for him, so he knew exactly what he was on. And then when Blake just talked about, we brought all 11 guys on the very first snap of training camp, and right at Drew Brees' face and everything. And the name of that blitz was, guess what? Come get some. And we blitzed all 11 players, covered nobody, and he threw it into the ground. He had the eyes big as saucers, like, what are you doing? And we might pressure a little bit this year.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I think about the first meeting we had with Greg when they hired him. We were sitting in the meeting room, and we had. I remember this is God honest truth. He's talking about the way we're going to play, the way we're going to be, the mentality of the game. Because we had a lot of smart football players, pros. We were X's and O's guys, but Greg brought the perspective, the mentality that changed my view of defense forever. Just honestly, like the mental side of the game is so much more important than the X's and O's, and we hadn't had that. I was in my 5th year, 6th year. And I remember looking over at Scott Fajita, Greg's talking, and we're like, oh yeah, like this was like this is the missing link. Like we were ready to play a game, and it was what, February, March, April, I don't remember, but
it was March. At the end of March.
Yeah, and it was exciting because we were like, man, this is a whole new. You think as a player, what it takes to play in the NFL, and then you have a whole new perspective dropped on you. You played for all these different coaches, but yeah, Greg, like you were the first guy who came in our meeting room and was like, it's not about X's and O's. It's about mentality, the way you play, the way you view yourself. We had a bunch of choir boys, but we were about ready to rip someone's head off every time we got done meeting. So that was the fun part of us for a year.
And every meeting was that way. We were going to play faster, smarter, tougher for longer than anybody, the longer part of the conditioning aspect. And I was pretty hard on all you guys, but that was also that I have never broken a meeting with professional athletes for my entire life without a rookie having to come up and tell a joke. And because I wanted everybody laughing, having a good time, having fun, talking smack, doing those type of things too. But obviously, you guys do remember the very first thing that I talked about was how you're going to sit in a chair, how you're going to pay attention, how you're going to keep your eyes on me. You're going to do all that type of stuff, because getting your eyes right is getting your mind right to go play the way we're going to play. And you guys had a great time. I think about that all the time. I love living down there, love coaching down there, and some great memories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just tag on that real quick. I remember my first meeting with you one-on-one. I was talking to Joe Vitt, and he's like, hey, go meet Gregg. And I sit down, and you're like, I'm going to have you playing faster than you've ever played. He's like, you're like, hey, you play hard, but you're going to play at a speed you've never thought you could play at. And I was like, man, I play hard every play. What's this guy talking about? I quickly realized, once I understood the game and I knew what we were going to run, and like you just said, I knew where my eyes were going to be, that's where just playing hard went to playing fast.
Getting your eyes right will get you to play fight. Okay, play fast, and that's what we had to do. And the big thing about all you guys is that how do we do a good job? If I'm a good coach, I can teach you to anticipate the play that's going to happen. And now you're going to be already moving into battling that play before it's ever snapped. You guys were phenomenal about playing with anticipation and instincts. And like I've told you before, a wrong guess is going to be okay with me, but a slow, correct guess, you're going to be standing by me over holding the down markers, because I'm not going to let you play.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things is if you touch Drew Brees in practice, get an apple and a roadmap. I still use apple and a roadmap to this day because of that.
That's exactly right.
Apple and a roadmap. Hey, you remember, because you're getting your butt sent out of here. That's not how he said it, but we've got to have it be made for TV, But yeah, a roadmap so you can find your way home, and an apple so you have something to eat
on your way home while you're waiting for your next trip. And and I think I also told you guys I was at the Redskins, Commanders now, back in those days, and a player, they didn't do what I told them to do, and Mark Brunell, the starting quarterback, broke his finger following through on this young man's helmet, and I cut him on the practice field. He had to take all of his gear off, stack it over on the practice field, and walk in his underwear off the practice thing, and at that point in time, nobody else got around the quarterback again.
Yeah, you can't win without those guys. Hey, especially number 9.
That's totally true. How about this guy? Because I know you're in the media and you're watching everything around the league. And I was thinking about you yesterday when I was watching this. Obviously, maybe a lot of viewers, people in Cleveland knew of him, but maybe a lot of people didn't know of Travis Kelce until Taylor Swift, put him on the map and made him famous, over the last couple weeks. Obviously, the NFL's loving all of that. You would have thought last night watching the game that they had never heard of Travis Kelce either, because it was just like Oprah, here, have another one, here, have another one. But Scott was one of the best people. Scott, you were one of the best people I ever coached at covering tight ends and Hall of Fame tight ends.
Doubt.
As you know, it's like when we would play Tony Gonzalez, when we would play Vernon Davis, when we play some of the elite ones, we're like, okay, hey, screw where the will's supposed to line up this week or whatever. Like, you go, cat coverage. Like, you go get him. You go blanket him. For the Browns fans that remember, we actually used to do that with Kirko here as well too, Christian Kirksey. But we learned it and started doing it with you, Scott. But what do you see from Travis Kelce, and how would you attack Travis Kelce, and how would you play and cover him?
With Kelce, he's so good at finding the open zones that no matter what zone you run against him, he's just going to go backyard football and uncover and find that soft spot. And I think that's what drives people crazy. And he has a quarterback that's on the same page as him. With Kelce, I think you almost have to go like a basketball type defense, where you run if you're running cover 3, you take one of those hook defenders out of the hook coverage and you go man-to-man on Kelce and you play cover 3 around him. I think he's so good at exposing your zone coverages that you almost have to go like a boxing 1 type mentality on this guy. And if you go man on him, now you're playing man everywhere else, and you're gonna get a bunch of pick routes and all those things. So you can't just live in man. But I think you have to design special types of defenses. I just don't understand. I'm going to do everything I can, and I learned this from you guys. Don't let a team beat you with their best players. That's right. Do what they want to do. If you lose the game and Kelce has 2 catches, but everybody else, some other guy off the street has 10 catches and has the game of his life, you can live with that. But how do you let the guy who beats everybody beat you? So it drives me. He's a hell of a player. Don't get me wrong. Exactly. And it's easier said than done, but you got to try some different stuff.
But you know what? It brings a big smile to my face that you actually paid attention in the meetings, and that's exactly right. I know, is that, hey, make them do something they don't want to do, okay? Yeah. And you've got to make sure you're doing it, and brought a smile to my face when you talked about we can show them cover 3 zone coverage, but now do a box and 1 by doing that man technique and play fire zone 3 as opposed to zone cover 3. And that's exactly right, but nobody else has thought about doing that at all.
But that's what we did, and that's what our philosophy was. I mean, you remember, like, you see all the memes that I still see the memes out there sometimes on this, but you remember Vice, right?
Yeah,
like
Vice
Megatron, right? I mean, you remember, and we see it, and nobody had ever seen that before. But it's like you're talking about, it's like Einstein's definition of insanity. Like, you watch him do it week in, week out, or Travis Kelce or Megatron, Calvin Johnson, do it week in, week out. And remember, we sat there and said, okay, well, we're not even gonna let you off the ball. Like, we're going to tell Matthew Stafford pre-snap that go somewhere, like pre-snap, go someplace else. Don't even try to do this. We're going to take 2 first-round draft pick DBs and get in double jammer, like we're jamming, we're jamming a gunner. Like it's a punt return, and say you're not getting off.
If anybody's wondering what you're talking about, just go look at it. It's it's on YouTube somewhere.
It's on there.
Because it looked like he was a gunner, and we were returning a punt, and we just had him viced on the 10-yard line down in the red zone. And people are like, wait, you did that? No one else has ever done that.
Nobody else. How about this, though? And in practice, we did it with Jimmy Graham because we knew that was the threat of our own team, and it frustrated the hell out of Sean Payton and Drew Brees because they wanted to throw the ball to Jimmy Graham, and we said, no, we're going to vice him. That was over and over and over.
That was Jimmy Graham. Remember when Jimmy Graham came in initially, and I was still over coaching on the offense, but he was the backup. He was a rookie, just learning to play. He played 1 year of football, and Jeremy Shockey was our starter. And so you remember, he was our scout team guy. And we knew he was going to be real because on Fridays we called him Jimmy Graham Fridays. And you remember,
oh my God,
Scott, remember how much he pissed off Malcolm and Roman Harper, two Pro Bowl safeties, because he would just go up and moss them. And that was the we should talk about this on there. That was the genesis of the peanuts in the meeting room. Do you want to talk about, tell the viewers about peanuts and what that was?
Well, a lot of people think it'd be equivalent for people to understand, like getting mossed.
Yeah.
Getting the ball taken off the top of your head. Like Jimmy Graham was plucking the ball over the top of everybody. And you didn't want that to happen. And he did it to everybody because he's 7 inches taller than all of our DBs.
He was. And so he had a part of his anatomy was up in your face and up on your head when he elevated up. And so we like to talk about, that his nuts were up there. And so there was always, the players always had sunflower seeds and Planters peanuts just to snack on during the meetings. And you remember how mad it used to make Malcolm and Roman and those guys. And so we started egging it on and throwing peanuts, or having a whole huge pack of peanuts sitting at their desk. Anybody that got mossed in practice,
it was great
as their award when they got in for meeting room.
Yeah, we had a great meeting room of players who loved each other. But I think what was special is how our coaches and our players got along. There was no definitive line between our coaching staff and our players. With players, we understood, we respected you guys, we appreciated you guys, all the work you did. And for us, the most exciting time for us was Wednesdays. You walk in, you get the game plan, you get who we're playing, and you would sit there, you go from the team meeting room, Sean would tell you who we're playing, what they do well, what they don't do well. We go to the defensive meeting room, and we would get the breakdown, like, here's how we're going to beat these guys. We're not going to let them do this. Nobody ever, for players, we never went out of those meeting rooms and said, that shit, that ain't going to work. Everything that was put in front of us, we were like, man, this is how we're going to win. And so the buy-in was amazing. And when you win a lot of games, that helps too. But we won a lot of games because that buy-in was there from day one.
And once you guys earned, and respect and trust are earned, and once you guys earned my respect, I talked to you guys a lot during game on adjustments, during weeks on adjustments too, and got your ideas on certain things that's best for you, because we were a team, not a bunch of individuals. That's coaches and players, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I didn't play for all coaches like that. There were a lot of coaches I played for. I ain't gonna mention any names, but it was their way or the highway. And so the player's like, well, we've seen it work this way. Can we try it this way? No, that's not how I've ever done it. Yeah. And that's how you divide a team really quick. So yeah, the buy-in was there because, like you said, you trusted us, you trusted the input. If somebody was going to make a check, we were all going to play that check no matter what. So I think we just had a special group of guys. We didn't have a lot of prima donnas. We had guys willing to do their role. Like Blake said, shit, I would have liked to not cover Tony Gonzalez every play because the fans were like, man, get this guy off him. Tony Gonzalez is a Hall of Famer. You hold him to 5 catches. That's a great day at the office. But
what about Vilma? Vilma coming up with his own check so that he could make the play, so he could get more stats. And he and I getting in a big pissing contest over on the sideline where he invented a check so he could go make the play. Oh, my gosh. Those were the days.
Vilma, he's like, I'm staying in the paint. Shanle, you go out there and cover that dude. He's going to be a first ballot.
You go.
Yeah,
that's where the you go call came from. The you go call. I know.
I'm staying here. I'm gonna go rush. I'm gonna go rush.
You go, Scott. You go. I'm staying right here.
No doubt.
Yeah. I know.
But we had, but like you mentioned. I mean, that was you guys were the standard. I mean, I learned so much from coaching you guys, all right, on what was possible. I mean, I used to go every place I went after that, from coaching you guys and then offensively coaching Drew, right, and watching those things, is you guys showed me the amount that professionals could handle and like what was possible, right? And so I pushed every team, every player, everybody I went to after that on, hey, we can put more on these guys. You can't put too much. You got to see where that is, right? You can't ever, as a coach, be like making them worse off. That's not our job. But like, these guys smell something. They know out there on the field, like they know the play. They know what's coming. It's like, do you have mechanisms in there for them to be able to adjust, adapt, cheat, use those things?
Yeah, and just I think the one thing you guys always did well was adapting the defense to what we did well. And that's what we use the offseason for. OTAs, we weren't running the same thing in 2011 that we were running in 2009, not even closer. Tons of different stuff. So it's about adjusting to the personnel and what guys do well.
It's about what
a guy's 2 or 3 years older, he's not running the same way. So, that was interesting too, a lot of the stuff we did. People forget we were top 5 defense in 2010.
Yeah. No doubt about that. And it's not about what I like calling on defense. It's about what you all can do. And I still see that day in and day out when I'm watching these games. It's hard for me not to want to punch the screen every once in a while when I see the stupidity go on, because this is what the coach knows, but not what the player can do.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt.
Here's the last question I asked you, because obviously the game has changed so much. We talk about that. We lament it. It's changed a lot, since those days. But who around the league, what defense around the league do you like most watching right now, and do you maybe think most plays like that our defense back then?
Well, I think off the top of my head, obviously Cleveland is playing unbelievable. Not so much yesterday, but it's the NFL. You get humbled quick in the NFL. You have to bring your A game every week. I still think Cleveland is one of the top defense, if not the top defense in the league. I love Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz runs a lot of the same stuff we did, same type of style, same mentality, same type of X's and O's.
You do know that Jim was one of my assistants. Jim was on the staff with me at Tennessee.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of him.
Yeah. Dennis Allen, obviously covering the Saints. Dennis watching the Saints defense, not as much this year, but in the past few years, it was our defense to a T. Like a lot of the exact same stuff.
Yep.
So I think the Saints defense playing really good. They have some aging players that I don't know how much longer they're going to play at this level, but a lot of the X's and O's the Saints run. I mean, run defense has been really good. Holding people under 20 points, I think like 15 or 16 straight games. They've been playing really good defense down there.
I agree. It's awesome to watch those guys battle it out. Well, thank you very much, Scott. We appreciate you. We're going to take it to break, and when we come back, we're going to do some around the NFL news and headlines from yesterday. Welcome back to the Come Get Some show. I'm Blake Williams, and this is Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams. And we're now to the point of the show of the Pay That Man segment. That Pay That Man his money segment.
I think that is a great segment, and I'm all for it. And the players know I've always been for them to make the most money they can make, because that comes from production, it comes from wins, it comes from being the best in the world at what you do. And this is a great segment.
No doubt, and I agree with you. I mean, we were the same way in that. I mean, their earning potential is so short. There's so much violence, there's so much variance and volatility to their ability to do that. You want them to get their due when they can. And so I don't know if you know, because I know you're such a social media like savant, and so I'm sure you're aware that you can do polls on social media. So we ran a poll on Twitter last night. X, again, like I told you, it's called now. Elon rebranded it as X, but we ran an
X is Tesla, or what? No, I'm
no.
I'm
And so we ran a poll, and it's Daniil Hunter. All right, sticking in the theme of edge rushers, but hey, I mean, that's who gets paid in this league, right? You know, football. I mean, quarterbacks, tackles, left tackles especially, edge rushers, wide receivers, right? And so sticking in that, but Daniil Hunter is the one that won the great edge rusher at Minnesota, potentially on the trading block. And so I'm saying pay that man, and or here in Cleveland, how amazing that would be to see him rushing opposite Myles Garrett. Not trying to get overly greedy, but that would take this defense to a whole nother level if somehow, some way, the GM up there came from
I
here.
was getting ready to say.
So maybe if
Queshy all of a sudden got a little bit of pressure,
Quessy's a Princeton guy with me.
Oh, that's right.
But if some way that Quessy and the Harvard guys can get that figured out, or maybe we could be the ones to pay him. But Daniil Hunter, tell me your thoughts on Daniil Hunter.
I think he'd be a great choice here. He would be fantastic. I'd love to have the opportunity to coach him. When you detail out and you see what a tremendously hard worker he is and how he continually is growing. He's not satisfied with one move. He's not satisfied with one technique. He's growing that. He's growing that. He's working to improve every single second and every day he has in his career. And I've loved seeing a lot of different counters he's been able to come off of, how he sets you up in the thought process and then beats you with a counter. He would be a fantastic Cleveland Brown. There's no doubt about that, and I'd love the opportunity at some point in time, day and age. He's not too old. I'm telling you, he can still play. Pay that man, Quessy, or give them over here.
No doubt. He's nowhere near too old. I mean, he turns. I think this week he turns 29. He was the fastest player at the time. He was the fastest player in NFL history to 50 career sacks. He's leading the league in sacks right now. I mean, they had a bye, but he had 8 in the first six weeks, and has been doing that really his whole career, averaging 1 sack a start. I think 79 sacks and 79 starts, something along that line. Position flexibility. One of the things that I love doing. He's playing on he's made his second contract before, but he's playing on a 1-year prove it deal that he probably doesn't need to be playing on, but he's playing the way you're supposed to be playing. But also, I liked what Brian Flores, his defensive coordinator, talked about this past week, which was because the same way we've always talked about things, which he said, hey, if a guy gets 10 sacks, really good pass rusher, he gets 10 sacks, but he plays 1,000 snaps, like that's 1% of his snaps on the year, right? That he ended with that. What are you doing on the other 99%? And I think that's what we saw Myles do yesterday. All right, but Brian Flores talked about, that this guy's elite on the other 99%. The way he plays on setting the run, the way he plays with effort, the way he does all those things to earn the right to rush the passer. But yeah, we should definitely pay.
And
that.
Brian and I are very good friends. I have a lot of respect for him as a coach, and then knowing that this young man plays the way that Brian loves to have you play. He understands that effort and toughness has to go over just the 1 sack play. It's got to continue to go on throughout everything else. Pay this guy, okay? Pay this guy, and I'm very happy where he's at, and it'll be interesting to see as Brian continues to work him the way he needs to be worked.
Well, some of the other great performers around the league yesterday. I know we talked with Scott about Travis Kelce, but Lamar Jackson. Did you see the game that Lamar had yesterday?
I did.
With Todd
Monken. And I think, again, there's a great way to see how does a true professional athlete bounce back from a setback the week before. And there was pissed off practices. There were pissed off meetings. That everybody had an edge to them, and they came into this game this weekend with an edge because of the setback last week. I thought Lamar was on time with things, but then brought his legs back into the game, and I really believe that Todd made him feel really comfortable conceptually on the play concepts they were doing. And don't ever figure out, when you're playing for a John Harbaugh team, you're going to be able to run the ball. And those guys could flat get off and knock the line of scrimmage back. And they won the line of scrimmage, which allowed Lamar to have a great game.
Well, thank you. When we come back, we're going to end it up with some around the NFL and our charity spotlight. Welcome back to Come Get Some Show. I'm Blake Williams, and I'm here with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams of Come Get Some fame. This is normally the part of the show where we talk about charity, and speaking of charity, all right, I think maybe we should have a charity. This could be a cool one. Maybe we should have a charity arm wrestling contest.
Oh,
you and me. You versus me, a charity. Did you see the young rookie Division II backup quarterback that got the start for Chicago yesterday, Tyson Bagent? Did you see him play yesterday?
All of a sudden, I'm trying to scroll to find out who he is, and I saw that he's dad. Holy cow!
You saw it? Did you see it? You saw the video of his dad, who's a 28-time arm wrestling national champion, wrestling
big time.
Peliarso at I think it was the Senior Bowl and whatnot.
I wonder if
does not look old enough to have a son playing in the NFL.
I know.
So maybe that's something we should
check
do.
his ego at time without not breaking his son's throwing arm.
But But if you and I arm wrestled, you'd end up like Deshaun Watson, though. You'd be on.
No.
You'd be like, oh, my shoulder. You'd be on IR for a month.
We'll arm wrestle, but I just want you to know it's going to be full contact.
Okay.
It's not going to be just arm wrestling.
Well, it's that time of the year. I mean, all the midges are out all over the place. It's getting to the indoor time of the year here in Cleveland. So maybe we should find a sports bar. Maybe go down to Mike's Bar and Grill in Berea or something like that and set it up and have a full-on arm wrestling competition.
That could be good, and we charge everybody and go to a charity. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
All right, that'd be fine.
Well, thank you guys very much. Tune in next week to see around the NFL, the Browns, and see who our celebrity guest is next week with Come Get Some. Take us away, G-Dub.
Come get some. Okay, can't wait to the next show, and I guess I've got to get over. That's my name now.
Yep, and now we're going to break it. Ready, break, like we always do.
All right, here we go. Ready, break.
Come get some.